Bernadette Vandentillert, Gunnar Vega. Take it away, you guys.
Okay. Can you hear me? Perfect. I'm proud. Somebody in Texas really want to listen to me and Bernadette, of course. That's nice. And I'm the one who is going to start this presentation. I just need to say, I think, that what I have been doing since 1983 is working in the part of the field with congenital deafblindness. And my main challenge, my main try has all the way been to try to meet my students, to make them able to reach the level of language. Which has been very, very, very difficult. And I know that I was not alone. I am not alone about that. I still need to learn. I still need to learn what kind of a way does a person with congenital deafblindness has to walk towards acquisition of both social and communicative development and reaching real level of development of language. What I should like to start with is to tell you a story. A story that happened with me some years ago when I had started to work as a deafblind consultant. I heard about a man, 25 years old, deafblind caused by what is called Norris syndrome. Totally blind, hearing residual, which make him happy with some sound, like singing in his ear. One day, they told me, what should be the next step now? Yes. That they did have a man who was shouting. That was my way of thinking of it. See me as the person I am, he shouted. Louder and louder, day in and day out. As time was passing, he shouted while hitting, biting, and pulling their hair, hitting and biting himself. But no one saw him. Every day they all were staring at the day schedule that had been approved, at the clock, the time schedule, giving objects, cues, and signs. No one was really interested in what he had in mind. No one saw him as the person he was. And I assure you, it was not the plans that was the problem. That is needed. The plans is important. I think what was the problem is that the people around him, after a while, become more and more directed towards the plans and less directed towards him. What he tried to say, because he started in his way to communicate. That there was no one really listening when he tried to refuse some of the activities, for example. So he started to push. After a while, he started to knock them with his forehead. I think it was almost no one who really was searching for an impression of him, an understanding of him, unless one little weak voice, which I met the first day I entered the residential unit where he was living. This was in the morning. He was still laying in the bed. Actually, he was very often laying in the bed long time during the day. He refused to stand up. If they tried to get him up, he began to hit again. This morning, I could hear a singing voice when I came outside his room, his bedroom. And I went in, and it was a beautiful little moment. The sun was shining into the room. He was lying in the bed, and the caregiver was close to his ear, singing for him. And he was laying, ooey, ooey, ooey. That was a sound he used every time when he was satisfied. And she stopped singing, raised her head, waited a little minute. He looked for her head, brought it down to his hair again. And of course, he asked for more singing. Yes, of course. So she was singing again. And he was ooey, ooey, ooey together with her. Finished her singing, raised her head again. And again, he took her head. But now she stopped. She freezed in a way. And she was looking at me. What I'm going to do? What are you going to do? What do you think he's asking you for? Singing? Yes, shouldn't you? No. You know, it is decided that we shall only sing twice before he is going for the shower. My gosh. No one saw him as the person he really was, just for a short moment. And then again, my own plans, their own plans became more important than the voice of him. Then, something happened. This was in the winter time. And during the spring, it became just more and more difficult. It was less and less people who was really daring to work with him, because it sometimes became very dangerous. So when they started their summer vacation, two persons decided, we have to try. We have to try to change our approach. We have to try to look for him. Have to try every day, every meeting to see, what do you have in mind? What are you thinking of? What are you now? What are your attention directed towards now? And they really tried hard to cultivate this relational space and functions together with him. And something changed a little bit with their way of acting. They focused on the co-presence, the captivating each other's attention in the mindful presence of the here and now. It was so beautiful to look at them. From being persons who all the way is trying to direct him towards their plans and to what is important for them. Oh, I could look into the room and see them sitting tight together, tactually exploring something which he has found interesting to activate himself with. And sometimes when they were sitting like that, I could hear him again. Ooh, ooh, ooh. And this sharing of experiences, thoughts and emotions through the sense of touch was just wonderful. And in small steps it started to change his approach too. And they were reading his tactile expressions. They were listening to him. In this way, they became aware of who this young man with deafblindness really was. And you know, he became more and more aware of who they were. And the big change was that he stopped laying in the bed in the morning and refused staying up. A couple of months out in the autumn, when he heard with his residual hearing that the staff people were coming on work, he jumped out of the bed, out to the room where they all are together, asking for coffee, to go back to his room. No. To sit down, staying together, having a new, nice experience of being together with other persons. They had really changed his life during a short time. In a way, I'm thinking they was cultivating the relation. They was making greenhouse conditions for the development of a self that started to believe in me as a person worthy the attention of other persons. Now we would like to try one thing. It is a new little story. Because how to stay together, how to really try to look for the other person and the other person's experience of a here and now. This is what we are going to talk about the rest of the time. I should like to tell you one little more story. And we would like to make the first session of it like a role play. I think the big challenge now is the size of the room, because it will be difficult for at least the people in this and this end. That's how it is. We try. Okay? What was happening one day, and it is again one real experience. I entered another residential unit. Just when I entered, I saw a congenital deafblind man, or let us say woman. Deafblind caused rubella syndrome. He was working in a room, and suddenly he detected an apple on a table. Right then, a caregiver arrived into the room, saw the deafblind person with the apple, and he almost ran. He was very eager, ran towards him and said, "Ooh, you want to eat? Yes, just a moment." Oh, here. Now you can eat. That was what happened. It was a really nice caregiver coming in. Really wanted to supply the deafblind man with something good to eat. He was sure, but he didn't check out. Could it be another way? That was I was thinking afterwards. Could it be another way to stay together with this man, woman? Let us try. Let us take, please let me try, okay? Okay. Could that be a possibility?
So, to initiate and sustain such an experience, if you think about it, what you saw, or if you remember your own contact with persons who are deafblind, congenital deafblind, would it be a challenge for you to share an experience in this manner? Because what kind of communication partner do I need to be to create such experiences? We really want to focus on experiencing, being the experience really a crucial element of this sustained interaction with all the persons who are congenital deafblind. So, as you see, going beyond vision and hearing, like this morning so beautifully explained to us about that the sense of touch and the tactile sense is really the sense that matters. And although the sense of touch is not too familiar with us, to use it in different ways than we are used as babies or, in certain relationships. When we are with people who are deafblind, we have to rely on the tactile sense. And in using the tactile sense, there are cultural elements, personal elements. You yourself may be very comfortable with it. The deafblind person may be very comfortable with or being careful. Then there's also cultural issues, like private space. We are both from countries, originally, for me at least, that in the supermarket, and you're having your cart, and you would do the shopping, and you would, at the same time, keep the private space that they have in the country I come from, the Netherlands, then we could not even do shopping because the aisle is not wide enough. Because there's so many people, so many buildings, so much going on. The whole infrastructure, the buildings, everything is related to a very small private space. And then you go up like that, you're very used to it. And it's easy. When you are used to a bigger private space, it's important, of course, to find ways that you still feel comfortable and you still have your arms that reach out. So the same experiences can happen just with a little bit more distance. And it's also a process. It's a process with the deafblind persons to see how they are with that. So if you look at development of these students with deafblindness, then why sometimes is expressive communication not coming along? Why is it sometimes that there is so much stress? It is not because of that person who is deafblind. It is not because of the communication partner. If that communication partner has the intention to come into contact. But the point is the deafblindness in such a way that experiencing the world from a deafblind perspective is not what is typical. So two worlds meet each other, and then that deafblindness is unknown. It's a different world, tactile world, and how to find each other, where to meet, where to find common ground, where to find shared attention with these two different worlds. And that is where the problem is. It's not in the child. It's not in the educator. So when we're talking about the example Gunnar talked to you about be present in my world. Matisse says silence and solitude are the greatest luxury in life, but all depends on furnishing solitude with life. So we are talking here about the assumption that life is so full of social contact and so full of activities with other people that you really appreciate moments of silence, moments of solitude, being mindful about what is happening in the here and now. And we try to find those moments, but we typically are so busy it's hard to find. But what now if you are a person with deaf blindness and you do not have access to all exciting things, to all the contacts around you? Then it is the opposite. Then it is that someone may be lonely, and silence and solitude are not luxuries, they are barriers. And it doesn't mean that there's a difference between loneliness and being alone. Being alone can be very much okay, but feeling alone, experiencing loneliness, that is a different matter, and that gives a lot of stress in each person because we are social beings. So how can we build experiences? How can we connect with persons who are deafblind? So that is through the dialogical perspective. The dialogical perspective is actually more a framework, and within that framework, it is that the key idea, how do we develop ourselves? How do we develop our identity? How do we connect to the outside world? And to share values and thoughts and ideas with other people, that happens through dialogue. Minimum of 2 persons, can be more, but it happens in dialogues, in turn exchanges. Let's see for an example.
As I have heard a lot of other people say to me, also after arriving in Texas, it's about what all the deafblind students, persons have learned you. And that has really been the same for me. I followed one young girl. She was 12 when we started, for 10 years. Ingrid, some of you have seen her in the video phrases, and we'll show you afterwards. I learned a lot during the relationship with Ingrid. And what was very interesting, it was because I had a son, Jakob, already when I've been together with Ingrid for some years. But I think I acted or thinking like all other parents, intuitively, doing what parents do. I did not have any kind of a parents' teaching program, but I just did it. So I did not remember when I got angry what I actually did, because it was intuitively. I was not really theoretically informed. That is not needed as parents. But in my meetings with Ingrid, it was important to try to be more informed, because I had to make it in a conscious way to give her the same conditions. And something happened together with Ingrid. And then I got my next child, Johanne. And because I have detected something together with Ingrid, something that really helped us communicating in new ways. Because for the first 6-7 years we spent together, we were not able to communicate about beyond here now. I tried, and I tried, and I tried. And I thought, perhaps, Ingrid, perhaps it is so that you, who are born deafblind, always blind, totally blind and deaf, perhaps you have reached your limit. Perhaps to talk about your 100 signs and to be able to interact around what is here and now, perhaps that's what we have to broaden out and be happy with. Because we was happy a lot of times. Until we one day suddenly succeeded in communicating about something that happened beyond here and now. And what I detected was that the limitation was not within Ingrid. The limitation was within me as a partner, seeing, hearing partner to a congenital deaf-blind child. Because still in my life, the difference between being seeing, hearing, and this tactile world and the world of touch was very, very, very long. The day I detected how we begin to communicating about something beyond here and now, it was without my words, without my cultural language, without the signs. It was by use of the impression from yesterday, picking apple from an apple tree. So then we started once. Intuitively again I started. Do you remember yesterday, you and me, we felt, and I gave her just a little movement upwards and lay my hands listening to her. Then she stretched her arm up like picking the apple and smiled, the most delicious smile I've seen forever. And when I affirmed her, oh, she was so lucky again. Finally, Gunnar, you understand how I impress how I am in the here and now, and how I am able to express it. And that's the first step, from impression to expression. Suddenly, I got my Johanna. Here she is 11 months. You know, during December, we are firing up 1, 2, 3, 4 lights, candles. And every time we have done it in this parental way of doing it. One day, in the middle of December, I was moving towards the living room with Johanna on my arm. I was, in my mind, away to the kitchen. But suddenly I saw she was looking to the right, to this light standing on the, what do you call that?
Windowsill?
Huh?
Windowsill or
It
table?
was not, but let us call it windowsills. Then I can continue.
It's a table.
It's the same. There was not lightning. There was no fire on the candles. But Johanna went towards them and made this movement. At that time, she was not able to pronounce any vocal word. She did that movement. And I immediately understood that, Ingrid, now I really understand. You have learned me a lesson. It is not only you who start to express yourself through bodily gestural movements before the language is really a rich language. And then I remember I had once read a research report about deaf children's development of language. First, that was the first sentence. First, they develop gestural bodily expressions, and then it is cultivated into a visual language. And the next sentence is the same for seeing, hearing children. They are first developing a bodily gestural way of expressing themselves. Next, it is cultivated into an oral language. So I thought the next time I was together with Johanne and there was a video camera, I had to try to film it to see, was it by accident or was it really that she was thinking about something, expressing herself. So this is what happened. Then I went to another place in the living room. It's a candle, not the same one, but not firing. And I tried to start to have a conversation with her. A conversation for any cultural language is acquired for her. What did Daddy do? And then oh, I loved it. Because then I understood that this is what we have to do together, you and me, Ingrid. I have to enter your world of body, touch, movements, emotions. And I have to stay together with you and be aware of what can be the next bodily gestural movement to share. So we can be able to develop our communication just like the same way as Johanne, Jacob, and all other seeing, hearing children does. And you know this, what is happening in this dialogical approach? How do I understand? In a shared experience. You saw that I didn't have to think about how to create a sustained and shared here and now. She was just looking at it. She was just following, and she was just looking to me. I was looking to her. We was paying attention to each other, having a kind of a dialogue. It just happened. And what happened to her? She started to begin to see Daddy, like the man in the bed. Started to look at the other persons, started to be aware of them in just another way. But she also started to see herself, because Daddy had all the time been a kind of a mirror, affirming her, being aware of what she was doing the same thing like a mirror. So she could be able to see herself as a person, expressing herself, as a person who is thinking, as a person who is worthy the attention of other people, as a person who has a voice, as a person who is developing communicative agency. And slightly she became aware of the world around us, because mother and father was showing her they were going into new experiences. It was not only me and you, it was not me and you and the world. It was shared experiences. So both Johanna and me could feel our shared communicative competence. And I should like to tell you a little story, because Johanna is now 16 years old. And this morning I have been so nervous. It's a long time since I was like that. So I sent an SMS to Johanna.
Text.
And I told her, Johanna, I'm soon going to start together with Bernadette. You know, it's a huge room. 350 people. I'm so nervous. And I was really nervous. I think I felt, oh, I have no energy left. Am I worth it to do this? In a way, I think my feelings were saying. You know what she answered? I will tell you. Good luck, Daddy. Be great. Be you. And blow them away. Tee-hee, love you. And you know what happened? Something inside me changed. Johanne was in this way a kind of a mirror, helping me to see myself in a little different way. She believed in me. She said that I will be able to do it. This is a process going on from the beginning to the very end. That's why reaching the dialogue, reaching a shared and sustained here and now is so very, very important.
So, do you remember sometimes that you had a conversation and you meet someone, you start talking, and then you exchange, so how are you? Exchange some common ideas, and then you delve a little bit deeper, and you share maybe a story, and then sometimes it feels like there's a disconnect. You're nicely doing the turns and, you know, everything seems to work. But you do not have the idea that what you're trying to convey is received by the other person. And sometimes it can be because the perspective that I'm coming from and the perspective that the other person is coming from is so different that there is a misunderstanding in whatever words you use. So we know from our daily lives how important it is, if you want to have real nice conversations, to try to understand and look at the words of other people or the signs of other people from the perspective, from the person who utters them. So what do they mean for that person? Maybe those words mean something else than how I would use them. Maybe I have other connotations, other images about what that person is trying to tell me. And then if we can negotiate and ask or show, you know, I'm not sure, and then you find out together. And then you find, oh, it's from that perspective. Oh, now I understand you. Oh, yes, I recognize that. I had one experience like that. So how was that for you? So then you get deeper in the conversations, and you meet each other's perspective, and you get to know each other better. So if you have this conversation, there needs to be a togetherness, two persons being together, but not just one person standing here, the other person standing there. That is not enough. It's really the connection. But first of all, I myself have to be present in myself. In the here and now, who am I? What do I think? What do I feel? What do I experience? Am I aware of that? Am I mindful of what is happening in my body and emotions and how I see the things at that moment? And then when I meet that other person, that person is in its own presence, then maybe if we have a good conversation, we can create this co-presence, meaning two persons in their own body, emotion, mind, ideas, values, then meeting each other and sharing them, having a co-presence, being together, being directed towards the other person, having attention, real attention to the other person. If you first have attention for and be mindful about what you are and who you are in that moment, then you also can direct your attention to the other person and really see who that person is, what emotions, what ideas and thoughts in the here and now at that moment that person is. So to create that co-present, being both present but directed at each other. So it's very important to search for that co-presence. This is not specific just for us or for people who are deaf-blind, it's for everyone, right? But now, if we are with a person with deaf-blindness, and I have my bodily way of doing, like talking, using my hands, having my facial expressions, being who I am here and now. And then there's the person with deaf-blindness, who has the same for that person himself. So how can we now create that co-presence? We have to find each other in a shared perspective. I cannot expect the person with deaf-blindness to suddenly hear what I say or look at how my mimics are. But what I can do as an interaction partner, and that is my role, is that I can try, not being as skilled, maybe very clumsy, but at least I can try to go to the perspective of the person with deaf-blindness and become co-present through the sense of touch.
Co-presence is possibly a word some of you don't use very often, or did not use very often earlier at least. Neither me. Before I started to experience this shared experiences with shared and sustained attention, shared attention with Ingrid. Because I did not have a word for, I was not, as I said, informed, theoretically informed about what was really going on. But I have some kind of consciousness growing of that during these shared experiences, I behave in certain ways. I remember once that I was in the gym together with Ingrid. It was only me and her. And we did have that kind of an experience. And it's long, for a long while. And I could feel how eager I was, how co-present I was. I did not knew the word. And just after we have finished it, one of my colleagues stopped me. And he said, it's very interesting, because he had been standing and looking at us. It is very interesting because you are so here and now when you are together with Ingrid in this way. And that was kind of a help to begin really to understand something, because that was my feeling. I was really here and now. So eager in sharing, so eager in trying to find out where I could find her, what could be shareable in these moments. So when I did my master's study 6 years ago, I should try to to dive a little bit deeper into that. And this, I've been presented for this co-presence. Yes, it must be about co-presence. So I was elaborating on this concept. And I was thinking, I should like to try to make a very simple definition. So it could be easy for me to remember. It could be easy for you to remember when I try to explain it for you. But I couldn't, because I think it is a rather complex way of being. What we are doing intuitively with our seeing, hearing child, it is really complex because it is a lot of things happening at the same time. That's why I think it is so difficult if we are not really studying this. What are really going on? Because I need to do that. I needed to do that to be able to do it again. That's why it is so important to be theoretically informed. It helps me to do what was very nice, who was a success for us, again. So my try to make a definition, my conclusion in a way it is an attitude, a state of mind. It is a state of a mental, bodily, and emotional awareness of coexisting in each other's here and now. I hope you could have a version of this PowerPoint, because you will forget it in a moment. I go to the next slide. It is an active state of attention, offering the other person perceivable signs of attentiveness. Perceivable signs of attentiveness. It sounds immediately in my mind, must be deafblind. No. It is how it's functioned all the time with my little child, together with Bernadette, together with Chris. All the time, if my attention to you is not perceivable, something starts to happen with you. You will become insecure. Is he not really interested in me? Is she occupied by other things? She just talk, and she just hear what I'm trying to say? No really perceivable signs of her attention towards me. I became vulnerable. So, what then for a deafblind child? If my attention, my real attention to him or her is not perceivable. When I was reading through this master study, I came over Kabat-Zinn's quotation about mindfulness. And I love it because I think it's so to the point. That's why I love that you have this concept at the top for this symposium. He says, mindfulness cannot be reduced to a cognitive tool, but is in its deepest sense about a way of staying in the world and experience oneself connected to others. It is an invitation to be precise about where you are and take note of the internal and external landscape which unfolds in the present moment. For me, it is really being aware of what I do experience now that you experience now. Can you see the big difference? I can really be aware of what I am experiencing now. When I'm moving a little bit like this and moving my hands and fingers, But for Ingrid, who is totally blind and deaf, it doesn't help her at all. There is nothing which is shareable outside her. So I really have to experiencing, take into my own body and mind what you are experiencing now. That's the only thing that is shareable for us and can then be shareable in communication afterwards. And this attention, this concept attention, this function attention has been so important for me. Because very often when I am talking about attention earlier, I'm thinking about it. I have been thinking, oh yes, it is important to be aware of the function of the attention of the child. He or she is able to sustain his or her attention for very often not more than 5 or 6 seconds. Then it's break. Then next 5 or 6, 7, then a break. That was typically was happening very often when I was together with some of my congenital deafblind students. So, it is two attention. Your attention and mine need to be coordinated. True attention and interest for someone is reflected in emotional, body language, facial expressions, intonations, interested eyes, lively hands and fingers, and these will have an effect on the observer. The person with deafblindness can perceive these signs of attentiveness when they are presented in a tactile mode. Yes, only when they are presented in a tactile mode. And when you present your attention towards your child with deafblindness, what are your hands telling the child? Does your hand tell the child that your attention and your attention is to quote your attention towards what is in my mind now? Or is my attention perceivable as a real, authentic intention of listening to you? First of all, listening to you. First of all, be in what you are experiencing. Because, Ingrid, I know it's only when we touch each other. It's only when we do it by sharing during touch that you and me can be able to share now and afterwards. So I have been trying. This is one of the last experiences I shared with Ingrid. It was the last year, the last months I spent together with her. Before she left school, and before I left school. We were going out fishing crabs because I have been thinking about these impressions could be expressions. And I had an imagination that, the crab moving on her arm, I could see these wet traces. And I know how it can be emotionally loaded. That must be something which could be left as bodily emotional traces. We have done that once before, some years earlier. This time, we went to the beach. It was a lot of big stones between us and the water. So I saw at once that this is impossible for Ingrid to move over and reach the water in a nice way. So I gave her a stone to sit on and told her that I will go and I will pick up something and you can wait. And I went away. The worst thing is that I did not succeed catching any crabs at all. And the other thing, which is as worse as that, is that what was happening here was my story. What was happening here, that was Ingrid's story. Nothing was shared. So if I tried to talk about being at the water, at the fjord, it was impossible. Of course it was. So the next time I went to the fjord together with Ingrid, I had prepared. Fishing the crabs last evening, had it in a buckle?
Bucket or
I have to
pail?
ask her for some words all the time.
Pail.
Yeah. You know what I mean. Can we call it a buckle? It's okay for me if it's okay for you. So I had it beside me, so then I started to fish. All the time during touch. All the time focusing on sharing what was going on. From A to LMNOP. Okay? So this is what happened. Akkurat her over. Stakkars, han blir kajager for oss. Ja, kajager for oss. Han er ja. Det kjente du? Han. Hva var det for noe? Hva var det for noe? Ja, hva var det for noe? Han ramler ned. Han må vi kjenne. Ja. Der, ja. Der er den oppe. Kjente du? Bakken der. Krabba. Skal vi legge det oppå? Gjorde det? Ja, han krabba oppover der. Ja, men du, han ramlet ned. Hvor? Ja. Kanskje vi skal begynne. And we had already been together for a long while, walking through the water, out on the beach, sitting down, start to fish, start to share this crab experience. And she was on. And did you see that already in the experience, the first expression is arising? When asked what was this and was pointing to the arm, she was not saying very clearly this, but she was saying something like this, Gunnar, on my arm. And after the next repetition on the experience of the crab, I asked her again, what was this? Then she's saying, something on my arm in this way, Gunnar. And you see the last part, that was the first conversation, the first real conversation. Not the next day or 2 hours after, but when we still was in the situation. And Ingrid could talk about it. She could show me, I hold my hand like this. I could feel the crab like this. I could feel it on my arm like this. It was a dialogue where she experienced to be a person expressing herself, having a voice, being understood. And she experienced staying together with a partner who also expressed something that was understandable. And I think it became a nourishment for her cognition, something to think about. Because surely she did. A little bit later now, I will show you the conversation the next day. And then this topic about the crab started. It was initiated by Ingrid. You should, it was not nice. It's an ethical question, doing this kind of thing with a deafblind girl. I don't think so. I think it's what we typically do, seeing here in children. Have you ever fished crabs? Oh, you should have. And you should have done it together with your big brother or something. Because I promise you, when we were doing things like that, oh, my big brother, you don't give me any choice. Gunnar, come on. Don't be silly. Don't be that little boy. You have to feel it. Come on, put it in your hand. Don't you dare to take it up. Woohoo, little brother. Or when he trained me for the first time to jump on ski. Chicken, chicken. Come on. And I was so scared. But when I went back home, then I was the hero of myself, of my own life. Telling about it as one who was really brave. And you will see, Ingrid is doing exactly the same when we are talking about it the next day. What I've been doing is following her at the same time as I have trying to supply her with experiences. And as with all others, because Gunnar has been the one who is interested in her perspective of it, I have become an interesting partner. That's a principle.
So we have used the word tactual, empathic, almost, and mirroring. But what is actually tactual, empathic mirroring? It means affirming and maybe commenting on the plausible tactile impressions and expressions of the person who's deafblind. Well, what it actually means is that if you see a movement, or you see a slight touch, or you see a change in the facial expression or the body position, how can I let this person with deafblindness know, I have seen it and I'm attending to you. And I'm with you. I can perceive what you're doing. If I say it, if I'm following with my gaze, no, when I maybe do the same, when I maybe do exactly the same movement, or when I touch together. And in that way, I affirm that, yes, I am with you, what you are thinking about, what you are experiencing now, or maybe what you're feeling, I am with you. Well, when you do this, with your own presence and the child presence, you meet each other. And the child not only may experience that you are attentive, but may also experience that you are sharing what she is doing, what she is thinking about. Be it the topic of feeling something, being the topic of making a movement. But that you're doing that together. And the child may feel, oh, I am hurt. Maybe not yet understood. That is a difference. But at least this person sees me, this person hears me, knowing what I'm doing. What it means, as an interaction partner, I may not always know in that moment what it means. But together we can figure that out. But the first step is to show that you are with the other and the child knows she's attending to me and following me, and I'm heard and seen. So this mirroring, or almost imitating, doing the same, is a very strong way and easy way, if you're comfortable with the touch, easy way to make this happen. So why is that so important? A person with deaf blindness can only then experience himself by having a communication partner who shows him the person he just was, by commenting on what he just did. So if this was just a slight movement, maybe not very aware, but on a bodily level, but not really thinking about what is happening here, but just it's happening. As soon as I start following, then the attention is even stronger. And then the person with deaf blindness becomes even more aware of what this movement was. So what he or she was just doing. So it's kind of an emphasis. Oh, you were doing this, or you like doing this, or you're just interested in the curve. Whatever it is, it says something about that person, because the deafblind person is doing this. It says something about that person is interested in. And it also gives the child feedback about where he or she is interested in, becomes more aware. So she will get to know herself better. Of course, by your affirmation, the person with deaf blindness experiences acknowledgement of himself. Then I acknowledge the person with deaf blindness. By your co-presence and commenting on what you did, you are nourishing the cognition, thinking, and understanding. So when this is more emphasized then, it is easier to leave a memory trace. Otherwise, she may have experienced it, but then it further goes unnoticed, and then it's the next thing to feel. If you do it together, it's more conscious. So it may leave a memory. We'll come back to that. Then, by simultaneously including a symbol in the commenting on what she experienced, the symbol will find its home in body and mind. So this is it. If you are having the attention together here, then both of you are attending to and thinking about the same. Well, if you know that the child is attending to and thinking and experiencing this curve, if at that moment I would add here the sign for curve, and I'm sorry I do not know it, but the sign for curve, then it makes completely sense for the child that what I'm doing here, the movement and the position and the hand shape and everything I'm doing here, has to do with this. This means this. So if you first affirm, shed attention, and then comment and add the language of the culture. So we know that persons with deaf blindness are incredibly skilled and conceptually aware of how things in the world and people in the world, how it feels. The tactual understanding is beyond what I even can imagine. Because in that regard, I think for them I may be clumsy. And although I work a long time with touch, but it's not my complete everyday life every time. So I need to find ways to develop that, to develop how the world is when you experience it by touch. And you know what? This tactual mirroring, this tactual affirmation, when you follow the child, you attend to where her hands or her feet, or with the apple, how it feels. When you attend to that as well, you get a little bit of an understanding what the child is experiencing tactually. And it brings, the child actually gives you a window to experience what it is, how different the world looks through the sense of touch. Very complex, as rich as any visual or auditory world, but it gives you a window. The child helps you then to get a better understanding about this tactile world. And you get an understanding about how the child moves through this world. So if you have seen in the experience with the crab and also with Johanna that things are not just little cut-up moments. You start, you get attention for each other, then you continue, you sustain the contact and the interaction, and things happen. So this is actually more kind of an abstract illustration. If you look at the first left block, and then you see two little hands. So those are the hands of two people, right? So it is meeting each other in a tactile world. Then you see this flat line that is like activities. Things you do, be it a crab, be it a candle, be it having a lunch together. And then if that is all in place, which we think of, then what kind of activity are we going to do? It's okay, it's good to prepare, but then that is only a kind of a prerequisite. It's not the biggest thing. The biggest thing comes next. Opening contact, establishing contact, getting the turn exchanges going, and then to see, following the child, then you comment and bring in your own ideas. Then the child takes the lead, and you follow the child again. And with all these turns, you built this whole experience. And you know what? You saw with Johanna how her movement was with this. It was not just like a technical move to make the wind go. It was really like, so a little bit excitement. And with the crab, you really saw, especially the first one, that was excitement. And also when Gunnar was doing that, right? Building the excitement. Well, the crab was excitement in itself enough, but still affirming that and building the excitement. If you build the excitement, proximity gets closer, tempo increases, and then you get this emotional involvement stronger. And this is the clue, because this curved line above is not, it has to do with emotions. But the key is the sharing of emotions. So this line is about in what way are emotions shared. And if you really have some tension or some novelty with stress or something very excitement, and you're able to share that, oh, that is scary, or that is nice, or that is surprising, and you share that with each other, then you get that effective involvement. And then it tapers down again. So, and if it's not just little chopped moments, although there are many different moments within a narrative, but this whole structure of building together this experience makes it coherent, makes it like one story. Experience unfolds, has a beginning and an end.
Is it so that these experiences from the pier and the crab is established as traces? Is something left in Ingrid's body and mind? What Bernadette and I have been calling bodily emotional traces for some years now. And for sure, when Ingrid starts this part of the conversation, we have been talking for a while about the rucksack and the orange, which we did have on the beach when after the crab fishing. Then suddenly she's moving a kind of movements in my hands to tell me, I want to say you something. And then this starts.
Ja, det var den krabba som på deg. Ja, det var en god. Du og jeg, ja, vi tok den opp. Og la den i hendene. Så krabba den oppover så. Ja, visst. Ja, den krabba. Først Gunnar, han tok. Og så dro vi opp snøret, og dro opp. Og så kjente vi. Ja, så krabba bortover. Ja, visst.
Can you see? She is not afraid anymore. You can't not see the tension from yesterday on the pier. She's proud. I think proud because she has the image of being a person who was brave enough to have the crab on the arm, but also proud because she was able to keep in her mind what she has done and being able to share it and having the experience of being understood, having an own voice, living a life where you don't need to shout, please see me as the person I am. Because the condition for having the experiences of being me, worthy, Gunnar's and others' attention has been fulfilled, at least enough to experience this kind of moments which make my life so good, and my life. Because I am also seen as the person I am. She listened to me. She understood my touch, my expressions. Gunnar is also a person worth being listened to. I think that is what we have to struggle for the whole time. Sharing moments where we do have this experience of being an I together with a you and experience the we-ness. That's, I think, the greenhouse condition for growing as a human being. Thank you.